Would you pray with me? Oh, good and gracious God, your word speaks to us echoing through the years and decades, filled with meaning, insight, purpose, challenge, calling, and always filled with good news. So help us to hear what the Spirit is saying to the church today, that we might receive good news and be good news. Now may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. I knew a woman who told me that she never was quite sure where to put Joseph in the nativity scene. She would find her hand kind of hovering above her creche and thinking she should move him to the side or she should move him farther back. And sometimes she just thought maybe he didn't belong there at all. I think a lot of us have that reaction to Joseph in the story altogether. He seems like he shows up, but it's not entirely clear what his purpose is. He is an obligatory figure, but maybe not entirely necessary. That is not the way the gospel writer Matthew tells the story. It isn't true that in the story we often think of, which comes from the gospel according to Luke, Mary is the central figure who responds to God's presence in an angel and agrees to participate in this inbreaking of God into the world. But in Matthew, it is completely different. In Matthew, it is on Joseph's shoulders that all of the incarnation momentarily rests. Matthew invites us to adjust our perspective not just in a nativity scene and how we put the figures together. Matthew invites us to adjust our theology. Let's remember that Matthew does not begin with shepherds or angels. He begins with a genealogy. And Matthew is tracing Joseph directly back to King David, and then moving King David to Joseph to Jesus, so that family and history and genealogy are not side notes, they are not inconsequential. It is clear that God can work through ordinary, everyday people. But what is special, Matthew tells us, about Mary and Joseph is not their inconsequentialness, it is their faithfulness. And Matthew is clear that he is going to describe for us what faithfulness means. Righteousness for Joseph is not rule keeping. If Joseph was about rule keeping by culture and by law, he could have put Mary away, might have even been obliged to set her aside, even to bear severe punishment. The righteousness, the faithfulness which is commended in the Gospel of Matthew is entirely relational. That Joseph chooses to be in relationship with God and with Mary. He could have stepped away. He could have stepped back. Instead, he steps in. He says, in effect, you do not have to go through this alone. We will go through it together. Here, give me your hand. And Joseph does more than just refrain from harming Mary in the situation. He gives dignity. He restores Mary's dignity. And he gives earthly paternity and protection to Jesus. He names Jesus as he is directed to do. He adopts Jesus as his son. And in doing so, Joseph very publicly binds himself to something extraordinary in the culture and time, and to the disruptive work of God in the world. In Matthew's telling, Christmas happens because one person chooses relationship. Mary has already said yes. Joseph has said yes, moved by this divine whisper. And then we have to remember the story is not just about them, not just about Mary and Joseph. The story is about us. And we are not just to wonder where Joseph shows up and stands in the nativity scene. We are to wonder and work out where we stand in the nativity story. There are people among us who, like Mary, are carrying something sacred and heavy. It might be their identity, their calling, their truth, their hope. And there are others among us who are more like Joseph, with more safety, with more security, with more voice, with more choice about where we stand. And we know that the nativity scene is not free from fear. The nativity scene invites us to find our place even though we are afraid. It invites us to act with love, choosing protection of others over self-protection, concern for others over concern for our own welfare. We're not going to fix everything. We're not going to take all the risk away. But we are going to join in God's disruptive work, reaching out to someone and saying, give me your hand. This kind of love that is grounded in risk and humility and faith, it's what the prophet Isaiah evokes when he says, each one helps the other, saying to one another, take courage, do not fear, I am with you. God's work in the world unfolds because hands are joined together, because people choose accompaniment over certainty and imperfection over perfection. Mary's yes mattered. Joseph's yes mattered. And so does ours. As we move into these final days of Advent, we might ask, who among us is carrying something sacred and heavy? And what fear are we called to move through, not for our own sake, but for the sake of another? And how might our love, fragile and fearful and imperfect as it is, become the very place where God is born among us? This week, we are not asked to fix the world. We are only asked to take another's hand and walk together and find our place in the story.